All right. Joy is not really here for the next story. So the Bucks Miami Heat, it was funny as I watched that game last night, I tried to talk myself into turning it off about 7 different times because it felt like it was over 8 minutes in. You know, it's really interesting. You know, we talk about this a lot on the show. There are very few stars. Just pay for them. Just deal with some of their crap. There is no other Russell Wilson on the market. Kyler Murray's the only thing even resembling his game. Just pay for it. Just deal with it. Just deal with Aaron Rodgers. So the Heat were very reluctant. Remember in the offseason, they wanted James Harden. They wanted James Harden to go with Jimmy Butler. And they were willing to give up anything as long as Tyler Hero wasn't in the deal. That doesn't look like a great move right now by Pat Riley, who usually makes great moves. Tyler Hero, and he's 21 years old. He is now playing with garbage time, guys. He's about the 8th best player. This series, he's been horrible. 14 total points, 3 for 15. We know he's an egregiously bad defender. But according to the stories I looked up to this morning, he started becoming a celebrity in Miami, which, by the way, there's 2 cities in the NBA where that happens a lot, and it's L.A. and Miami. Remember when LeBron came to L.A., and Jordan Clarkson's dating this person, and Kyle Kuzma's dating this person, and Lonzo Ball's doing this, and LeBron's like, you guys want to win some titles? You at least want to get to the playoffs before you become celebrities in Los Angeles? Miami is a seductive town, and Tyler Hero has officially been seduced. Jimmy Butler's not happy with him. According to stories, Miami's not happy with him. And let me just say this. Before we ask the question, what's happened to the Heat? Well, are we sure anything's happened? I mean, they were a 5 seed last year in the cruddy East. That's the second lowest seed in the history of the Eastern Conference to ever make the finals. And this year, they're a 6 seed. I mean, Jimmy Butler's very good, but he's not KD. Bam's very good. He's not AD. This is kind of maybe what they are. I mean, they're not special offensively. They were 18th in total offense. A 5 seed, a 6 seed. This is last year they got kind of a break. They had a bunch of young players in a city that's highly distracting, and they pulled them all to boring Orlando to sit in a hotel for 3 months. And it worked to their favor. They took out the distractions of Miami for a young team. Young guys easily distracted. They put them in a bubble and they played their ass off. But that we see examples like this all the time in music. One-hit wonders. We talked about My Big Fat Greek Wedding. We see random movies that are fantastic. And then you try to make a sequel and you're like, nah. Now, Caddyshack was worth 1 movie. That was it. You know, Hangover, frankly, was probably worth 1 movie. My Big Fat Greek Wedding was probably worth 1 movie. The sequels never live up to it. Everybody's waiting for Miami to take the next step. Last year, a little lightning in the bottle. What's happened to Miami? Reality set in. Jimmy Butler's good. He's not KD. Bam's good. He's not AD. This is maybe just what they are. Getting beat badly by a Milwaukee team that's got more good players. Giannis, Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, got more good players. Sarah Kustok, Fox Sports NBA analyst. The Nets broadcast regularly wins best local broadcast in the NBA. Sarah's great. She's joining us now live. Okay, brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing. So you used to work, if I recall, Sarah, you worked in Chicago during the Tibbs era. I was totally wrong on Tibbs. I thought he was a grinder. I thought, oh, I've seen this act before. Players don't buy in. Now I watch the Knicks and I'm like, oh, they've got a soul. They play hard. So give me your feeling, because everybody now in New York's freaking out about that loss. Give me your feeling on what are realistic expectations for the Knicks in this series, and slightly beyond.
I think we're in for a tremendous series, Colin. And to your point about Tibbs, so I was covering the Bulls in Chicago. Yeah. When he got there, he would have 3-hour, 4-hour practice. I mean, we'd be sitting there waiting to. Yet. And this is, through the years of Derrick Rose, everyone's making jokes about him bringing back the whole Bull squad. I love it, and I love to see them thriving. But whether it was Derrick Rose, Taj Gibson, Joakim Noah, the list goes on, there was an immediate buy-in They loved him. They would do anything for him. He resonates with players in a way that they know how prepared he is, and he gets them to play hard. And I think that's why they've become so beloved, not only because they're winning, because they're in the playoffs, but because of the style in which they play. And so much of that, to me, is predicated on the characteristics of Tom Thibodeau. And you look at this series, I believe it's going to be a drag out. I think we're going to have a tremendous Game 7. Atlanta has got a ton of talent. That Trae Young shot and the Garden with fans, everything about it was really just a beautiful thing of having playoff basketball back here with the New York Knicks. But I think it's going to be a series because there's different aspects you pick apart with it and how good the Knicks are defensively and ways in which you're going to see adjustments. And you can't ever overreact to a Game 1. But, man, that was a good one.
Yeah. By the way, you see the Heat a lot out in the Eastern Conference, and I was saying this to lead my show today. Everybody's like, what happened to Miami? And my takeaway is maybe nothing happened to Miami. They were a 5 seed last year, a 6 seed this year. Butler's good, he's not KD. Bam's good, he's not AD. They're a good team. But Milwaukee's a better team that added pieces. And that sometimes it happens, Sarah. You get a one-hit wonder in music. You get a random hit in the movies. You don't have a sequel. This is kind of what they are. They've got Bam's a very nice young player, and Jimmy's an excellent A- player, but they're not the Nets. They're not the Sixers. They're not Milwaukee. And is it possible we're looking for something that they're not, which is special? They're just good.
See, I did think they were special, and I thought they dealt with so much throughout the course of the regular season. And the quick turnaround, I think Jimmy Butler is a star. However, that game surprised me. If you would have had me on the show yesterday and tell me to give you a pick, I thought for sure that it was going to be the Heat tying up the series. The Bucks are the real deal, and they came out ready to go. But so much of it, I think we focused on the three-point barrage. Started with Giannis. Everyone's getting on the action. Bryn Forbes and Connaughton were amazing. But to me, there was so many breakdowns defensively for the Heat. Guys getting in the paint, getting to the basket, running the break. Like there was very abnormal Miami Heat defensive plays that I just wasn't accustomed to seeing out of that group, and just a lack of confusion, it looked like. I don't think the series is going to be a sweep. I don't think you just clean your hands of it at this point. I expect when they go back down to Miami, especially with Eric Spoelstra and this coaching staff and who Jimmy Butler is, along with the rest of that group, I think they're going to put up a fight, but man, Milwaukee, they've got it cooking, and I think the added pieces, the shooting, and the addition of Drew Holiday to go along with what you have in Giannis and Chris Middleton, this to me is a different Milwaukee team this postseason.
So I said yesterday, none of the initial games. I mean, we know Brooklyn's going to beat Boston, the Sixers, Washington. There's just a talent disparity. If Jaylen Brown was healthy, it would be a feistier series, but Brooklyn's going to win the series. Clippers Mavs is interesting. That's interesting because we've been talking about this. Joy and I have been talking about this for literally a month on the show. The Clippers are bad late in games. 2 years in a row, they can't solve it. You don't solve your problems in the playoffs. They need leads and comfortable leads late against Luka. And I look at that series and I'm not really sure the Clippers bounce back tonight. They played last year. What is your takeaway on this series as a whole? I think there may be a kryptonite. Clippers can't stop Luka. And the Clippers are so bad late in games, this series may look like game one over and over and over. Your thoughts?
Luka Doncic is a star. And we have seen that since he's come into this league. But when you talk about a kryptonite, I mean, he has picked apart this Clippers defense dating back to their meeting in the bubble. That was one of the first last season when the Clippers went all in, gave up picks, gave up players, brought in Kawhi, brought in PG, and still were able to maintain their depth. I will say that I was all in on thinking that they were the team that could be the biggest title contender. Obviously, we saw a unique year, a ton of challenges, but what happened in the bubble. But the Mavs walk away from that feeling like they could have won that. Luka was banged up at the end of the series. Kristaps Porzingis didn't play.
That's right.
But there was no real resistance from when you say, oh, you've got all of these wing defenders to toss at bigger players or like a Luka, whether it's Kawhi, whether it was Paul George. All of those factors, Luka said, I don't care. I can pick you apart in any which way. And we're again seeing that. I think that's so important, though. You bring up what you enjoy, have been talking about for a month. I think if you just look at the record and aren't really watching the Clippers day in, day out throughout the course of the last month of regular season, you think they're fine. They were not playing their best basketball. And Kawhi was missing time with a foot injury. Paul George was missing time with the toe. When you think about closing lineups and the lack of some continuity, chemistry, familiarity with one another and what you're doing, I think some of that lended itself to it. Of course, the much discussed finish to the season of who the Clippers were maybe trying to avoid. But careful what you wish for, because Dallas now has come in with a ton of confidence, a great game plan. I mean, when you think about what Luka did in most of his shots and looks because of how they were switching and what they were doing, hunting for mismatches of a lot of time going against Zubats and going against different players. Ty Lue alluded to the fact that they may start this next game with Kawhi Leonard on him, but we'll see some of just the different machinations of what these lineups and rosters look like with Rick Carlisle and Ty Lue, because I think they're both very, very smart coaches and great with adjustments. But to me, it's between, Kawhi said this, it's between the 2 ears for the mental aspect of the game with this Clippers team. And it's early. I don't like to use the term must win. Of course, it's a cliche, but Clippers got to get this one tonight because protecting your home court is everything. And they already lost home court. So if you're headed back to Dallas down 0-2, that is a really tough position to get out of.
Sarah Kustok, Nets. Great seeing you again. Thanks so much for dropping by on a Tuesday, a wild Tuesday. Great games tonight, Lakers Suns too. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks for having me.